Welcome in. It's a Tuesday. We are live from Social Taco here in Homewood. Landrum and Pat, Molly, and Conrad anchoring things from the studios of Jocks. It's a special day. The First Lady of Social Taco, BB. We're going to celebrate her birthday, and we're going to celebrate a full slate of SEC hoops action. We got a lot of teams in action tonight. Alabama on the road taking on a pesky Georgia team inside of Stegman Coliseum. The hapless, hopeless Auburn Tigers hosting maybe the Tigers that are the worst version of the Tigers in the SEC. That would be LSU. But, Pat, it should be a whole lot of fun as we approach tournament time.
Yeah, you mentioned it. 14 games in the Southeastern Conference. It's kind of a weird schedule. You got 14 conference games tonight. You've only got one conference game tomorrow night. It gets underway at 5 o'clock today as Tennessee takes on South Carolina. That's the first one. And then Bama and Georgia at 5:30. Bama, yesterday, they were a slight underdog, according to Vegas. This morning, you woke up and they're a 1.5-point favorite. Meanwhile, Auburn is an 8.5-point favorite over the LSU Bengal Tigers. That is a 9 o'clock tip-off that you can hear right here on Jock. So a full night of SEC basketball. Last night you had a couple big games nationally. Duke continues their dominance in the ACC. An easy win last night against Will Wade and NC State. And for a very short time, it appeared that Iowa State was going to stay with Arizona, and then Arizona kind of smacked them there in the second half, and Arizona wins away easily. So you got Duke winning the ACC regular season championship, and you had Arizona winning the Big 12 regular season championship last night. So those were the two big games that went on yesterday in college basketball.
Yeah, and when we start looking at those one seeds, Duke right now, kind of flexing. It's hard not to like some of the other teams that are there, but I would say Duke and Florida right now probably the most impressive that I've seen in the last 2 weeks. But come tournament time, anything can happen. But yeah, another impressive performance, and Will Wade, he's feeling that one, isn't he?
I don't know. Does LSU want him back? Maybe now that he knows that you've had one of the big wigs down at LSU last week come out on social media and say that obviously LSU should not make a change at their head basketball position. So maybe Will Wade has now kind of got that sinking feeling in his stomach that he's going to have to live in Raleigh at least another year.
Well, reality sets in when it comes to the caliber of basketball player that you have through NIL, and you stare at Duke and winning games by 30 points, winning by 50 last week on the road in South Bend against Notre Dame. This Duke team, they're playing pretty well. Would not be at all surprised to see them in the Final Four again.
So coming up on the show today, live from Social Taco, Mike Griffith. We hope to catch up with him from the AJC, DogNation.com. Nathan King, live on the plains, is hopefully he's taking a nap this morning, getting ready for that late-night tip at 9 o'clock. He covers the Auburn Tigers for Auburn Undercover. He'll join the show. Amanda Kristovich from Front Office Sports, she's going to join the show in the 12 o'clock hour as we're going to talk about this ongoing debate about the CFB expansion, what that potentially could mean for Army-Navy game. A lot of conversation about possibly moving that game up to the Thanksgiving weekend. So she's written a nice article at Front Office Sports about that. And, of course, as always on Tuesday, Dimitri Ravenos.
You know, we appreciate the game. We had the opportunity to go up as a show several years ago and watch it and take in the festivities during the week. But even knowing what I know and the limited things that I know about the game, and we know how much it means, hopefully it means a great deal to all of us who live in this country, just based on the men and the women and the sacrifices that they make, and every single day is evidence of what's going on around the world. But I didn't think about some of the things that Chrissy laid out in the story about you think, okay, well, we'll just move it to Thanksgiving. Well, that could be a problem. You move it to this week. Well, that didn't think about that. There's a whole lot more into it other than, all right, let's just put it here. So it'll be good for her to kind of unravel what that means, not only to both of the academies, but what that means in profit dollars as far as advertisers.
Yeah, I mean, the academy, especially the Naval Academy, they have been pretty vehement. They do not want this game moved. They want it to stay where it is, mainly from a sponsorship standpoint. You know, you got a lot of people that pump a lot of money in sponsorship dollars, you know, USAA, who obviously that's, you know, just being honest, that was the reason we were able to make the trip up to Philadelphia a few years ago to see the Army-Navy game. They're a huge sponsor to both academies in regards to, what they do from an athletic standpoint. So, would they be willing to move that to a Thanksgiving weekend where you've got a lot of competition going on?
Well, and I lean more towards, and I understand where the big business of college football and Navy and Army, and they've certainly been in the conversation at least the last 2 years with their respective teams. But I like that game being on its own stage. It deserves its own stage. I don't want it surrounded by bookend by this game and that game. Army Navy should be celebrated on its own. But where do we put it? Do we leave it there? Does everybody else adjust? Can we start the college football season earlier to leave it where it's its own standalone game? Christy will be an interesting conversation coming up at 12:30.
Joining us now on the Higginbotham Hotline from the AJC, DogNation.com. You can follow his work. He was just wrapping up a combine last week in Indianapolis.
Did he run?
I did not see his time. Mike, what was your time in the 40 in Indianapolis?
Yeah, no, I did not run at the combine, guys, but I ran home from the combine after being up there for 5 days. I was ready to get back down south.
All right, so let me just ask you that from an SEC perspective. And I know you were honing in on, obviously, the Georgia Bulldogs for DogNation.com, but overall, from the SEC perspective, could you hear the buzz for any certain guys around the conference that maybe perhaps going to Indianapolis you didn't hear as much?
I mean, Monroe Freeling, the Georgia offensive tackle really tested off the charts. He ran a sub 5.0 and he had an 84.5-inch wingspan and, all those boring measurables. But a lot of people thought he might have jumped up from, late first round to number 6 overall, and did a story on that for AJC.com today. That's $20 million. Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
The value of a 40-yard dash and a vertical jump could be $20 million. It just blows your mind. Now, obviously, there's variances in other rounds, but that first round money, there's a really big difference between the top of the first round and the bottom of the first round.
So in regards to Ty Simpson, I've seen some clips where some folks said, hey, he impressed folks in regards to his throwing, his interview. Obviously, he's a very sharp young man. Just some of the things that you might have heard behind the scenes about Ty Simpson. Is he still going to be potentially a first-rounder for Alabama?
Yeah, I think so. Ty's Ty. He's solid. Our eyes didn't deceive us. He was, impeccable at the start of the year when Alabama was clicking and everybody was healthy and, the supporting cast was good. I witnessed it myself against Georgia. They couldn't stop him. It seems like every decision he made was the right decision. Got rid of the ball quickly. So much a quarterback is who you've got around you and your pass protection. And Ty was really strapped by not having a run game. If you don't have a run game, there's just not much you can do as a quarterback. And I know most Alabama fans do understand the importance of having an effective run game, to keep you ahead of the chains, to set up the play action, to keep defenses honest. You got to have running backs that can block. I don't know who the running backs coach is off the top of my head, but he's got to teach guys how to do better pass protection, or he probably shouldn't have a job, because that was a big factor too. So there was a lot more going on than just Ty Simpson when things didn't go well. I think he's a great quarterback, and I don't know that I think Fernando Mendoza is that much better, if at all, to be quite honest with you.
Mike Griffith joining us from Dog Nation, the AJC. All of our guests join us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Right now at Dog Nation, you got a story that's up, and Kirby Smart in the future of the college football playoff, expansion, contraction. I was a little bit surprised that Kirby Smart is in favor of expanding. He said he thinks 24 is good for fan bases and college football viewers. I was surprised. How surprised were you at his response to that, and how many more SEC coaches do you believe followed that same train of thought?
Well, Josh Heupel already has. I think the SEC coach, this is their response to Greg Sankey. And, the commissioner made a decision with the league presidents and athletic directors that the SEC was going to go to 9 games. The coaches didn't want that. You guys remember, they did not want that. But the president and ADs went ahead with it. The understanding was that the Big Ten, was going to play ball and go to a 16-team playoff. They'd consider it if there was a 9-game schedule. And then the Big Ten moved the goalposts. They said all of a sudden it was, well, actually, if you'll agree to this 2014 playoff in 3 years, we'll go to 16. So they kind of changed things up on Greg Sankey, I feel like. I thought it was not healthy ethically the way that kind of shook out. But it is what it is. And so now if you're an SEC coach, Yeah, you want 2014. Heck, you might as well. I mean, you're probably going to get fired if you don't make the playoff every 3 years in the SEC. And right as it is, what is it, 12 out of 136 teams? I mean, those odds aren't good. That's not good. But yet, that's the mentality of these fan bases. Playoffs are bust. So why not go with 24? And if you're going to play a 9-game schedule, it gives you a little bit more margin for error. And if you want to protect your schedule and play some fun, competitive games outside the conference, which are important to play so you can show everyone how good your league is, then you need to have 24 teams in. You got to have a margin for error if you're going to continue to you give the fans the games that they want. So you're trying to kind of serve everyone, and also I think a 24-team playoff and more teams making the playoff means more satisfied fan bases, and also enables athletic directors to price accordingly if they have a quote-unquote playoff team. And if they price accordingly, i.e. charge more for tickets for football, they can support the other sports. And Kirby did a really good job of laying that out in the AJC.com article, going through all the economics of why this is necessary. And I don't want to call it a necessary evil, because who knows, maybe this will work out in the best interest of the SEC. I still think playing a 9-game schedule is incredibly taxing on these teams because of the depth of the league and the physicality of the league. I mean, you can look at the number of combine invites. I think there was like 30 more SEC players there than there was Big Ten players, albeit Big Ten has a few more guys in the top 10 probably, but still, this conference is deep and it's taxing, and there's a great deal of attrition when you play the schedules these teams play in league. And so, I'm all for, building in more of a margin for error. People like a wider playoff range, but, there is something to be said about how deep this schedule goes into January already. And I think you're going to have to start the season earlier, and you're probably going to have to eliminate bye weeks and perhaps even conference championship games.
Mike Griffith joins us for a couple more minutes here on the Higginbotham Hotline. Mike, you just mentioned Greg Sankey, and I saw where Greg Sankey is in favor of a one-time transfer. Your thoughts on that, and do you think that has any kind of momentum moving forward?
Well, I mean, obviously that's something he's talked about with his coaches and athletic directors and presidents, and, it is kind of ridiculous. And when you see a guy that's, transferred 3 or 4 times, I mean, it makes the transfer, it makes it a really light decision. Well, if I don't like it, I'll just transfer somewhere else, right? And we recently saw Todd Gurley say, I had transferred 3 times. I wanted to play for Georgia, and then I probably would have gone to LSU because I was kind of a fan of them. Then I'd gone to South Beach. Then I'd gone to – well, it's not that light of a decision. I mean, there's a lot of people that are investing in these players, and oh, by the way, there's an education to consider too. I can't think that that's the best thing for your transcript or for your field of study or whatever you're going to do when football's over with. Did I see Odell Beckham just declared bankruptcy or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know how you do that when you make. But my point is, there is something to be said. At least for now, we're still talking about these players as student athletes. And, with the way the NIL and the transfer portal works, I think it protects both players and universities if you do add a degree of consideration to a transfer decision outside of who's going to pay me the most next year, and I can always just transfer again, because it just seems reckless to me.
Mike Griffith, Dog Nation, and the AJC joining us here on Three Man Front, all of us joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Mike, we got a big night of college basketball in the SEC, Stegman Coliseum. That's going to be an interesting sight for Alabama as a slight favorite, but I do want to just talk about what was Georgia basketball and what it is now. It seems like Mike White's got that thing growing in a healthy direction.
Well, I mean, there's as much stability as there can be in a sport where 8 guys transfer in and out every year. I mean, it feels like it's really hard to have any carryover. I saw where Nate Oates talked about some of the best wins that Alabama had this year that were followed by losses, and I think Georgia actually opened as a favorite, so it doesn't surprise me that the money's going on Alabama. I think it's a fantastic team. I think Nate Oates is an incredible coach. I think Alabama's a better team. Stegman's been a tough place for people to play, and Georgia's decent. They can get up and down the floor, and if they're hitting their shots, they'll be at a disadvantage rebounding. If you're a Georgia person, you got to look at this as an opportunity game. You're playing a quad 1 opponent at home. It's a chance to maybe jump up a seed line or two in the NCAA tournament projected bracket if you can beat a great program like Alabama. They're sitting there, I think, 31 in the net. Even though I think they're 8th in the standings, or maybe 10th in the standings at 8 and 8, they've got a better net than Texas or A&M. Even though those teams have better conference marks. So for Georgia, it's an opportunity game. You got Alabama left if you're Georgia, and then you got to play at Mississippi State at the home. It's never an easy place to play. You do want to finish the season with some momentum. You got a 20-win season. You're probably looking at back-to-back NCAA tournament bids for the first time in 23, 24 years. They were ranked 6 weeks in a row in the top 25. So, by Georgia standards, this is kind of a banner year. Like we're talking like Kentucky football here, right? They've been bad for so long that, being a fringe top 25, 31 net NCAA tournament team, that's the equivalent of, what Mark Stoops did for 14 years before he got fired. So, but for Georgia, it's a big jump. Because they've been so bad for so long. I think Mike White's done a really nice job. I don't think they're anywhere near Alabama in NIL money or Florida or Texas or Arkansas. They're probably only 10th or 11th in NIL money in the league. But Mike's done a good job with them, and they're playing good basketball. So, we'll see. But Alabama, boy, when they're good, they're really good. And Nate Oates is such a great coach. It's going to be really interesting to see how the season turns out for the Tide. They've really overcome a lot and kept that locker room together, it looks like.
So before we let you go, and speaking of coaches, you're heavily involved in the Steve Spurrier Awards, and my goodness gracious, you guys had a great time down in Gainesville with Kirby Smart and Mario Cristobal going back and forth. That was a fun viral video, and I know it had to be a lot of fun for you to have a front row seat and watch all that.
Yeah, I'm the chairman for that award, so it's kind of neat working with Coach Spurrier on picking our legacy coach, which this year was Coach Fulmer. It's fun picking the first-year coach of the year, which was Dan Mullen. It was interesting to have him there. And then, like you said, Kirby really opened it up, and Mario fired back. I mean, these are two guys that played for their respective programs, so very passionate about their schools. They had some fun. They understood the assignment. It's the Steve Spurrier Awards. If there's going to be a place to rib and joke, I mean, it's going to be there. It was a great night. I think the fans enjoyed it, and I think it was great for college football. It was good to be reminded of why we like this sport so much, and the passion, the rivalry, the trash talking. I mean, and it was all above the belt. Nobody made any ugly comments, and they had fun. And then you had Philip Fulmer and Steve Spurrier there, a couple old rivals, and they took it pretty easy. When Fulmer Spurrier's the undercard, that tells you just how fierce Mario Cristobal and Kirby Smart were. And you can go to our Dog Nation YouTube channel. I mean, we've got the whole video up of Mario and Kirby going back and forth. I thought it was funny when Kirby went over there to Steve Spurrier and put his arm around him and said, "Did you tell me your daughter was a realtor?" And he said, "Yeah, she's one of the best." And Kirby said, "Well," he said, and then he pointed to John Summerall in the audience, the new Florida coach. He said, "Well, you're going to be the fourth coach I've played since I've been the head coach of Georgia. So I know your daughter's found a lot of houses around here." And Dan Mullen's like 6 feet away in the front row.
Oh,
that is
wow.
awesome.
Like, this is what I'm going, "Oh my God, Kirby! Like, he's right there." But Dan had some fun. Dan stood up there and said, "Well, I always knew I'd be a coach of the year in Gainesville. I just didn't think it'd be like this." He's obviously at UNLV in his first year, and then he made the joke to Summerall. He goes, "You could be up here next year." He goes, "I think 8 wins would do it with the shape this program's in right now."
Oh, wow.
Everybody's like, "Oh." So Dan had a little fun with it, and then and then Fulmer's up there, and he said, "I had 2 scripts prepared." He said, and he really did, because I saw his notes. I was just standing on the stage. He really did have 2 scripts. He goes, "But Coach Spurrier was pretty nice with me, so we're going to go with a nice script tonight." And he says all these nice things. Then he looks out to Kirby, points at him. He goes, "And we were 11-4 against your ass when I was at Tennessee." I'm going, "What did Kirby? Where did this come from? Kirby never beat you, Philip. Why are you taking it?" I guess this was just okay. No, holds barred. No one safe.
That's great.
Well,
Yeah,
it's all fun and
It was
games when
good
you
time.
get fired from your job and you leave with generational wealth, so you can laugh about it later. Mike Griffith joining us, as he always does, so gracious with his time, AJC, DogNation.com. But don't forget about why we love the Deep South for so many reasons. But this time of year, the weather is perfect
Oh, it's beautiful.
on the Gulf of America,
Yeah.
and right now you can find a great spot right there in Gulf Shores, Alabama, Mike.
Guys, I'll tell you, it's the Instagram account. It's at Gulf Shores Getaway AL. But I mean, June is booked, July is booked. March is full, but May. For whatever reason, I got a lot of vacancy in May. If somebody wants to stay in May, what do we usually do? I'll do 25%.
Oh,
So if they contact you, and reach out to me through y'all, I can give them 25% off the
That's
advertised
awesome.
rate in the month of May. So
Early
that's
May,
the deal
get
today.
down there. You got beach volleyball championships.
Mike
you can take in that
increased
sport.
my price 25%. He didn't give me a
Well, that's
discount.
true.
He made me pay more.
It was peak season. What can I say? You were trying to go in July.
They had to clean the pool.
But,
Yes.
that's right.
That is Mike Griffith, best in the business. Always great to catch up with you, Mike. Have
Thanks,
a great
Mike.
week, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
All right, guys. Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you so much. Mike Griffith joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline.
So those kind of events, we're probably the same way. That's one
that was
I'd have paid money to go see.
yeah.
that.
I mean, if you don't go to the dognation.com website and watch that clip, watch the whole thing. I mean, I'm talking
For
about
anybody who was ever wondering, like, is this did that really go on? Did that really go on? That tells you right there that now they can openly talk about it, and statute of limitations can't get them.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic. All right, we're live at Social Taco. Come on by and see us. The doors officially open at 11. We've already got folks that is congregating up here on the Taco Terrace. This is Three Man Front on Jocks. It is 10:25 here on Jocks. Welcome back in. We're live at Social Taco. We'll go down to Auburn, Alabama coming up in about 10 minutes from now. Talk to our good friend down at Auburn Undercover, and we'll get the very latest on the Auburn Tigers. A little bit of news coming out of Kentucky, as it is being reported by Pete Thamel of ESPN that Kentucky Athletics Director Mitch Barnhart is expected to retire. An announcement is expected in the very near future. He's in his 24th year as Kentucky's athletic director. Maybe it was because his basketball coach about a week ago down at Auburn was talking about the SEC and all those MFers. Remember that?
I think Barnhart knows that eventually with Kentucky basketball, you're probably going to have to hear it from the fans and fire a basketball coach. So, I know he's had a great career.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about Kentucky football, what's done under his leadership.
Very well respected around the Southeastern Conference, but Mitch Barnhart expected to step down as the athletics director at Kentucky.
Well, remember that flu season is still here, so make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus. It's 100 times more effective than standard air filters and 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. So go and find a dealer near you at Trane.com.
So you surprised that Kirby Smart is all about an expanded playoff of 16 to 24?
Well, not 16. I think when he said 24, I went, whoa. No, Kirby, he skipped the middle step. But it does make sense now. If you're gonna make them play an extra conference game, and why not? I think it's better for the SEC. I don't understand why the Big Ten and Tony Petitti was so dead set on the automatic qualifier. It seems like everybody else has kind of moved on for it, but I'm all about the 24 teams. I think it eliminates some of the hand-wringing. You're not gnashing your teeth over the 25th or 26th best team. You got 24 teams. That's plenty of a sample size, and that's extra games for us. Mm-hmm. I'm all about it. And I think ultimately that's going to be better for the SEC.
Well, I think
probably some of the mid-majors.
I think most of the SEC coaches, after you go into the gauntlet of a 9-game schedule this year, all of them are going to be advocating for a 24-team playoff.
What was the reason originally? I would love to hear the history behind why did the NCAA tournament go from where it was to where it is now. What was that process? What were those conversations like?
It was plain and simple about money, about inventory.
Isn't that what this is about?
Yeah, more games.
Yeah. If
your
let's
TV
call
partners
it what
want,
it is.
Your TV partners want more money. I mean, the NCAA tournament is the #1 generator of funds for the NCAA. They get like $3 billion a year. I'm not over-exaggerating. It's the only reason that the NCAA, that organization, is still solvent.
This is no longer about the student-athlete experience.
No, it's about
money.
entertainment. And at the end of the day, that's what the college football playoff is going to be. It's going to be 24 teams, or at least 16 teams, in my opinion. I think ultimately, they will settle on 16. But, Tony Petitti holding firm at 24, so we'll see.
Or if you had a 12 team and you made the 12 team, and then there's a second tier and there's another 12 team, and that 12 team has to play before the first 12 team does, and whoever qualifies. There's all kinds of ways that they can do it. More games means more money.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But I think you're going to hear the coaches. We're going to see how honest these coaches are in Destin coming up the week of Memorial Day. See how many of these people, because they're going to be asked. It's going to be the first time that the collection of all the coaches will be at the same facility where multiple reporters are going to be able to say, hey, Coach, what do you think about the 9-game schedule upcoming this year? What do you think about an expanded playoff? Do you have a preference? Because at the end of the day, it was the presidents that decided, let's go with a 9-game schedule. Yeah, they took recommendations upon their coaches and from their athletic directors, but at the end of the day, the presidents are the ones that vote, because they also got a comptroller in their ear telling them, hey, listen, if we had another conference game in Tuscaloosa, it's going to generate X number of dollars for the community and for the University of Alabama. We need to play it. And that not only Tuscaloosa, but Oxford, Starkville, name the city, everyone's going to make more money. But, of course, on the odd years, you're not going to make the money because you're going to play one more conference game on the road than you are at home. So,
given everything that's happened that concerns the SEC and college athletics that Greg Sankey has been a part of since last June when everybody met, do you think that this conversation, I'm not saying it's going to be back and forth. There's respect with everybody in that room, but do you think some of the questions may be a little more contentious than they have been in the past?
towards Sankey?
Towards Sankey, yes.
Well, let me tell you.
Because there's a few things that I can remember that might be brought up.
Well, I mean, listen, no one anticipated that Brandon Marcello would become enemy number of the state, last year when Brandon Marcello kind of took Greg Sankey to task on that Sunday afternoon, before the SEC spring meetings. So we'll see. I mean, there's going to be a lot of questions, from his signing his name to an affidavit going against a member institution. Why can't he and Tony Petitti get on the same page with the college football playoff? Where do you stand with one-time transfers? I mean, there's a myriad of things that I'm sure he's going to be peppered with, because I did not anticipate Brandon Marcello going after Commissioner Sankey last year in Destin, but he did. So we'll see who else is loaded for bear come that week in Destin. We are live here at wonderful Social Taco. Come on by and see us. Nathan King from Auburn Uncovered joins us next. It is 10:34 here on Jocks. Welcome back in the three-man front. We're live at Social Taco. Doors officially open at 11 o'clock, but you can sneak on up here, be with us on the Taco Terrace. We'll be here until 2 o'clock. Joining us from the wonderful Auburn Undercover, covers the Auburn football, basketball, baseball, all things Auburn for the website. Nathan King joins us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. My first question for you, Nathan, are you going to get a nap after lunch to get ready for that 9 o'clock tip-off tonight?
No, I'm usually not a nap person, but I feel like I'm gonna have to. I feel like I'm gonna have to force myself. And then I was saying before we got on the air, it'll be a double espresso or something like that. I don't know who's responsible. Greg Sankey, if you're listening, I'm not sure, but I mean, 10 p.m. Eastern time tip off is just. I mean, that should be outlawed.
Yeah, that was my next question. I know television dictates everything. I mean, it's just weird that we have 14 SEC teams in action tonight, and you only have 2 tomorrow night. Don't understand why we couldn't siphon a couple of these games off to Wednesday and perhaps Auburn not play at bedtime. But I was just curious, when was that set, I suppose? I guess the last couple of weeks in regards to what time this tip was going to be?
No, I mean, it was they set tip-offs like a couple months before the season. Like in the summer, they'll set what days they are, so that's when the problem
that's what
initially
came
that you're talking about, where it's like everything on Tuesday, and then couple months before the season, we saw like hey, it'd be 9 p.m. and I sort of thought that I was just reading it incorrectly, and it was 9 p.m. Eastern time. But
yeah.
No, somehow this is possible and legal, and so yeah, I mean, a team that's lost a ton of games and had a terrible February and playing itself out of the NCAA tournament is going to ask students to the arena at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. So should be an interesting turnout for sure.
Nathan is curious. This is something that just a couple of weeks ago, for me, I picked up on it, and it was body language of the team. Without being a shrink and being able to get inside of the heads of these players that Stephen Pearl has brought in, I don't know. It just doesn't look good. The result has not been good, and all of the losing that has happened over the past month plus. What do you make of it, and did you pick up some of the same things?
Yeah, Saturday against Ole Miss was the first time that I was really surprised. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I know that sounds bizarre when you consider how many games the team had lost previously, but I was sort of willing to chalk it up to the fact that we knew this would be an inconsistent group. We knew this would be a group that had some high highs and some low lows. That's going to happen anytime you have a first-year coach, and you look at the personnel on this team. It's like there's a bunch of guys who can score, but there's also a bunch of players playing together for the first time. I'm not sure how good their defensive chemistry is, and so the fact that they, even the Oklahoma game. I mean, Mississippi State was a bad loss, but Josh Hubbard goes nuclear in that game, and he was sort of the perfect storm for what your defense have been struggling with. Even the Oklahoma game, I wasn't necessarily surprised they lost that game because you're coming off an emotional win Saturday night over Kentucky, and then you're asking them to go on the road for a Tuesday night game. They haven't played well on the road all year, and then same old Oklahoma hits some threes that gets them tons of confidence. Ole Miss was the first time this year that I agree with you. I looked at this team, and it's like, man, are they – I mean, it just did not look good. You guys watched that game. Ole Miss didn't necessarily light the world on fire. They didn't look great. Auburn just looked worse. Like, Auburn just looked like a worse team. And obviously that's not what you want at this point in the season. To your point, Steve Pearl talked about it yesterday. You never want to be still having discipline in late February, early March, but that's exactly what they had on Murphy start. And so if you're counting them up, that's now 5 different scholarship players for Auburn this season who have been disciplined in some sort of way. Have had their rotation or moved to the bench. And so, look, we'll see if that's the right plan of action. Pearl going forward, he's trying to set a standard for one program. He's trying to set up, what his stipulations are. Like he said yesterday, look, it's not hard, not asking a lot. We'll find out in the next 1 or 2 years whether that's going to play out for him. But right now, obviously, like you said, it's the vibes are not very good. But I think that would happen with any sort of team that's in Auburn's situation right now. But it definitely doesn't help that this team doesn't have a ton of senior leadership. They don't have a bunch of returning players, and obviously Stephen Pearl's trying to do his best in year one to keep everything together.
Nathan, no one is going to debate Auburn's schedule. It's been incredible. The toughest in the nation when it comes to the schedule. But as you start looking at the number of times that they've been able to get one of these wins, it's been far and few between as of late. As of today, before this LSU game, Where do you have Auburn? Are they on the bubble? Are they on the right side of the fence? On the other side of the fence, needing some help to get back in the tournament? Where do you find this Auburn team currently before this LSU game?
Yeah, I mean, before this game, I would say they're out of the tournament. I think they played their way out with that Ole Miss game. Again, it was so, I hesitate to say it was so simple, but like even with all the issues that you had, even with all the games you had lost, that Ole Miss one was just what you needed. And because no one's going to blame you for losing at Alabama on the last day of the regular season, right? They're the second best team in the league right now. Like that's not going to tank your resume. You just needed to take care of business, and so that's why that was such a crushing loss. But in any other season and with any other team, any other schedule, that'd be done. We'd be how many losses Auburn have now? 14. 14 losses. They've lost 7 of their last 8 games. They just lost a quad 3 game at home. We'd be done. This conversation would be over. But you're looking around, and Joe Lenardi today, I would tend to agree with him. He has Auburn as the first team out, and I would tend to think that's where they're at right now. You mentioned the schedule. It's the schedule. It's the 6 wins against teams in the field. It's 5 quad 1 wins, along with the fact that, guys, the bubble is just terrible. I mean, the bubble is absolutely awful. We're talking about Indiana as a team that I think they have 2 quad 1 wins. They lost at home to Northwestern just last week. Like, we're putting that team in the NCAA tournament field right now. That's how bad the bubble is. Obviously, there's the conversation with Miami, Ohio. Whether if they don't win their conference, do they get in? It's so weak right now that you could look at Auburn, and I would not be surprised if they take care of business against LSU. Obviously, lose to Alabama on the last day. I think the committee may sneak them in as a first 4 team just because of how much that schedule does. How much their quality wins do in terms of strengthening their resume. And the important thing to remember is that the committee looks in totality. They view a game played on November 15th as just as valuable as a game played on March 1st. It does not matter that Auburn has lost 7 of its last 8 games. That doesn't matter when the losses came. It matters in totality. So now the question is, when they look at this schedule as a whole, are there just too many losses, or does the committee say, hey, you had the toughest schedule in the country and you picked up some good wins along the way? So I think as of right now, I would put this team out of the tournament. They need to take care of business tonight because I thought the Ole Miss game would be a given, and here we are. So this one is not a given against LSU. So we'll see where they're at heading. I'll be interested to see what things look like heading into the SEC tournament because you usually can't make up much ground there. That's just, we have years of data to tell us that doesn't really matter what you do in Nashville. But I think even with that Ole Miss loss, there is a small chance this could still be a first 4 team that would have to play their way into the NCAA tournament in Dayton. But as of right now, I think they've played their way out of the field.
Nathan, a little bit of a loaded question, but beyond this season, we've heard head coach Stephen Pearl talk about the want of a general manager for the basketball program. What is your best guess? Just this can be loose, shooting from the hip, how he addresses this roster postseason.
Yeah, like the knee-jerk reaction would be that he overcorrects and gets a bunch of guys who are, defense first, right? Like you've got a team of – and look, I've written this several times. I really do think the biggest issue with this team is the personnel this year. Like maybe this team would have worked a little better in different seasons, but you're asking Stephen Pearl to come off of his defensive coordinator duties on a full-time coach, but still be a defensive-heavy team. You have a bunch of players that – look, I'm not saying they're bad players. Like Keyshawn Hall and Todd Pettiford are not bad basketball players. I mean, look at what they do on a nightly basis. But can they play defense consistently in this system? It does not appear they can. So I would think that it starts with retention. The Todd Pettiford question is going to be a big one. I personally can't see him playing at Auburn next year. Like I just don't. I think he's either going to be in the NBA or he's going to be somewhere else. That's just kind of my thought process. I think it was big for them to get him back, period, and come play for the guy who obviously is not Bruce Pearl. But the other question is going to be what you do with a freshman like Sebastian Williams-Adams, who's pretty promising. Young guy in Elijah Freeman, who's promising. Kevin Overton is a veteran who's actually been, I think, probably the most underrated player on this team for them this season. Maybe Philip Jovic is a guy that you saw some flashes from this year, and you put some effort into getting him back. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be they only have one signee right now, Caleb Williams, who's a 4-star wing. They only have one signee in the recruiting class, so it's going to be another transfer-heavy offseason. And I'll just say real quickly, I don't think money is going to be a problem for this team. I believe they're top 6 in the SEC last offseason in spending. I know Auburn fans want to debate that because the team's not very good, but sometimes you don't get tremendous return on investment. Like, that's not the end-all, be-all. I do think they're going to have a bit of money. I do think that they'll be able to spend in the transfer portal, and I'll be really, really interested to see how Stephen Pearl makes this roster in his image, because obviously he didn't do that last offseason. This is Pearl's team. And to be honest, guys, I'm sure you would agree. I think that this coming offseason will probably make or break his tenure. He's either going to get things back on the right ship and get this team back into the top half of the SEC, or it's going to keep heading in the wrong direction.
What does that money look like? Just give me a ballpark of Auburn being top 6 in spending, or what they have available for their roster.
I've heard north of $12 million for the entire roster. And when you kind of think of the football number that's been thrown out in programs where it's like $30 million plus, I guess if you're a team like Auburn that makes a little bit of sense, or like less than half would go to basketball. That's just how things are. Like, I'm sorry, but you're Auburn. Like, there's always going to be the football draw. Look, but it's also an interesting situation because they didn't have to spend that much money the previous 2 off seasons. You talk to anybody around the program, retaining players is a lot easier than going to get them. So when they were bringing back guys like Janai Broom, bringing back guys like Denver, bringing back guys like Chad Baker-Mazzara, that was easier to do from a financial perspective than having to go and set up brand new deals to get a bunch of players on the team. And I do think they have a little bit of money, to play with from last year, just based on guys that they missed on, in the transfer portal. They were obviously wanting Yaxel Lindenberg from UAB, and he drew a really, really high price, and I don't think he necessarily spread that money out too much to the rest of the roster. And so I think it's probably around the $12, $13 million range. I don't know if it's going to be that high next year. I think it'll still be more than $10 million, but I think it's probably around that double-digit range. I think if you're a basketball program and you're at a football-first school like Auburn, like most SEC schools, just to be honest, I think around the double-digit millions, if you're around $10 million for your roster, I think that's fine. I think that's just fine. And like we're looking at this year, I think Auburn was top 5, top 6 in the league in spending, and that doesn't always do everything. Coaching matters, retention matters, chemistry matters, defense, all that stuff matters. And so it'll be really, really interesting to see what Stephen Pearl does this offseason, because obviously, like I said, it's going to be a really, really important one for him and his future as Auburn's head coach.
That is Nathan King. He covers the Auburn Tigers for Auburn Undercover. Nathan, always great to catch up. Go get that nap this afternoon, get some espresso, and get ready for the 9 o'clock tip-off.
I appreciate it, guys. See y'all.
See ya. That is Nathan King. He joined us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Wow, what Nathan just told us, especially with spending in college basketball in the SEC. We'll break it down as we continue live from Social Taco in Homewood. 3-man front on Jocks. Welcome back in. We're live at Social Taco here on a Tuesday. Landrum Roberts, Pat Smith. We are going to be celebrating the first lady of Social Taco in BB in her arrival. I'm sure you'll hear it here on the air. We just talked to Nathan King. Summarize what Nathan King just told us. Some very interesting comments about Auburn basketball, not only this year, but moving forward. Moving forward, we got spring. It feels like it's here, right? Well, what does that mean? That means warm weather right around the corner, but it also means you got termites. They're going to be active. Hopefully you don't have termites, but they're going to be active. You got to protect your home or your business with the Centricon system with the Always Active, scientifically proven to eliminate the entire colony, and our friends at Stark Exterminators can do just that. Not only the termites, but ants, roaches are going to be out in full force. Spring is the perfect time to call our friends at Stark. 100% of your satisfaction as a customer is guaranteed. They've been family-owned for over 62 years. Call today for the free pest inspection. It's really simple, 855-STARK-NOW. That's 855-STARK-NOW. Or you can visit StarkExterminators.com. One of their professional team members will come out to your home like they did at our house many years ago, inspect it thoroughly inside and out, and address any current issues. Like we had ants in the bathroom. They took care of that, but also looked at some stuff around the house and said, hey, keep an eye out for this. This is what we can do. It's Stark Exterminators. Give them a call today, 855-STARK-NOW, or visit StarkExterminators.com. When you do so, always tell them Landrum from Jock sent you.
So you heard during the interview Nathan King, he was quoting Joe Lenardi, who just moments ago, prior to the interview with Nathan, he just updated his bracketology. And Auburn is the very first team out of the NCAA basketball tournament if Selection Sunday was today. The last four in, Santa Clara, Ohio State, New Mexico, and Indiana. You heard Nathan give the resume of the Indiana Hoosiers, Auburn being the first team out. But I think we all agree, if they were to lose tonight to LSU, I think there's still a slim opportunity for Auburn. There is a pathway for Auburn to get in the NCAA tournament. You can debate whether you want to see Auburn in the NCAA tournament or not. But as far as their postseason life goes, I do think there's a pathway. It's a small one, but if you lose tonight, that small one has been extinguished.
I just look at losing 7 of your last 8 games. Let's say you win tonight. You lose to Alabama. I don't see how you can look at that. And this is just me coming from a pre-net rankings mindset. But how a team is playing, especially down the stretch when it matters, there's nothing about this Auburn basketball team that says they're tournament worthy.
Well,
and I realize the resume, but that was a different team. This is a different team than played Houston at Legacy Arena and fell 73-72. This is a different team than went to Gainesville.
It's also interesting because you heard Nathan King, because you and I grew up, and yeah, I mean, we've changed our mindset on things the way that the tournament looks at it. But you and I, we talked about it yesterday. Back in the old days, you would absolutely look at the last 10 games and how a team is trending. Right?
Right.
But you heard Nathan during the interview. He said that it doesn't matter. I mean, Auburn's schedule, and you can find yourself with a couple wins here down the stretch, including one in Nashville, that Auburn could find itself in the tournament.
It's wild. But it's also a credit to basketball in this state and the tournament success that we've had and the propensity to get teams into the tournament that Auburn fans are saying we're not worthy of going to the tournament, right? Everybody knows good basketball when they see it in this state now. We'll continue. 3-man front rolls on Jocks.